Madam Mac-Ozigbo of National Open University of Nigeria. I'm here again for another session of Industrial Relations class, MBA833. Our topic for today says, Nature and Goals of Industrial Democracy. And we'll be discussing the concept of worker participation, goals of industrial democracy, elements, forms, and techniques of worker participation, degrees of power sharing and participation, and levels of employee involvement. Are you ready for this? If you're ready, just stay tuned as I take you on this ride. Topic 5. Nature and Goals of Industrial Democracy. Industrial democracy is involvement of employees in the running of, say, the industries, factories, companies, and so on. And it is an arrangement which involves workers making decisions, sharing responsibility and authority in the workplace. The worldwide trend towards worker participation is in line with the principles of democracy. We find out that workers can expect a greater degree of participation in organizational decision-making. Various structures such as bargaining councils and collective agreements are put in place in many countries to promote participation. So you can see that participation is key. And organizational rights are also expanded in order to realize this particular aim. What does industrial democracy mean? Industrial democracy refers to participation in management decision-making processes by the workers in the organization, and to an industrial relations system in which the democratic rights of workers are recognized, empowerment in the workplace is allowed. And here, employees and employers are seen as partners. Employees must always be afforded the opportunity of directly or indirectly participating in the management and decision-making processes of the organization. You understand what we mean by indirectly when they have, that is when they have representatives to stand in for them. Many scholars tried defining employee participation, or you can say worker participation, in their various ways and their various styles. Scholars like Anster, Nell, Solomon, Bendix, Swanepoel, and others. So let's take a look at what, in a nutshell, the understanding we have about their various definitions. From their definitions, worker participation entails those processes by which non-managerial employees are afforded the opportunity of participating in decision-making. It also entails exerting a significant influence on decision-making areas, which were regarded as employers' prerogative. And it also entails that management will consequently have to give up some of its powers to resort to more participatory management styles and methods. What are the goals of industrial democracy? We have the ethical goal, the political goal, the social goal, and the economic goal. What do we mean by the ethical goal? The ethical goal is that goal which is concerned with the personal growth of the worker. And then the political goal is that goal that is aimed at extending the individual's civil rights in the organization. And this aim is in line with the concept democracy. Then the social goal. The social goal is concerned with the promotion of healthy relationships in the organization. And this will have a beneficial effect on the organization as well as the community. And finally, we have the economic goal, which is aimed at the promotion of productivity and profitability. Participatory structures are established in organizations for 4 reasons, according to Salomon, 1993. And these are morale, power, trade union, and political. For morale, it is an ideological belief in the right of workers to share in decisions which affects them. And power is the pragmatic reaction of management to the collective power of workers within the organization. And trade union can constitute direct trade union activities which compel management to allow a greater degree of worker participation. And when we say political, it refers to the policy and legislation emanating from the political system, which compels organizations to accept systems allowing greater participatory management. We have discussed reasons by Salomon, and now it's time to take a look at reasons as well by Bendix. According to Bendix, management sees participation as a way of increasing the commitment and cooperation of workers. Secondly, trade unions see it as a way of increasing worker influence and control. Workers see participation as a way of overcoming employee-employer conflicts. And finally, there is an economic benefit derived from participation. So these are the reasons. At this point, you take a pause and complete activity 1. How can the organization ensure the workers' effective participation in decisions that affect the quality of their work life? Elements of worker participation. Participation by workers consists primarily of 3 interrelated elements, according to Nell in 2002. And these may manifest themselves in organizational decision-making processes in a number of ways. These elements are, we have influence, interaction, and information sharing. Influence. The highest participation occurs when the employer and employees have equal influence in decision making. And at the lowest level of participation, managers retain all the influence and make the final decision. Talking about interaction, this element is mainly concerned with the problem-solving activity of both management and workers. In this context, interaction refers to their attempts to reach agreements on the actions to be taken to realize the organization's goal. Interaction between management and workers is therefore the hallmark of participation, because it will be impossible to involve workers without any form of interaction. Then we have the information sharing. If management wishes to interact meaningfully with workers, it must be willing to make information available to them. It must also be willing to consider seriously information which they provide. And the aim of information sharing between manager and workers, or between employer and employees, is to understand each other's viewpoints in order to reach agreement, which of course also presupposes interaction. Forms of worker participation. We have the shop floor participation, work councils, collective bargaining, representation on company boards. The shop floor is used to refer to all the ordinary workers in a factory or the area where they work, especially in contrast to the people who are in charge. A work council can be referred to a group of employees representing a workforce in discussions with their employers. And then collective bargaining means a negotiation of wages and other conditions of employment by an organized body of employees. And here we have representation on company boards. You can call it a board level representation. So board level representation of employees refers to the phenomenon where employees elect or appoint representatives to the strategic decision-making body of companies. So, according to Nell, participation can assume different forms. We have maybe internally or externally. So, but let's look at the form that it assumes internally. It's also divided into statutory, which means workplace, we find examples in workplace forums, safety committees, and then the voluntary aspects where you have the teamwork, the task teams, and the quality circles. Participation may assume two forms, either direct or indirect. Direct participation occurs when a worker participates, personally and directly in the decision-making process of the organization. And indirect participation, on the other hand, can occur only by way of representation. Workers elect representatives from among their ranks to participate in the decision-making process of their organization. So the representation may be within or outside the organization. This is where you get that internal or external representation we talked about. So it should be clear that a distinction must be drawn between involvement and participation. I mean worker involvement or worker participation. So worker involvement is regarded as extension of the power to make decisions and of business information, rewards for performance and technical and social skills to the lowest levels of the organization. One of the main differences between employee participation and employee involvement is that participation refers to the actual business activities that employees perform, whereas involvement is about the level of input in decision-making that employees have regarding which business activities they perform. Taking a look at employee participation. When an employee participates in a business activity, it means he shares the activity with others. And these others form one team with the employee, and the team is responsible for completing a goal or project. Now let's see what employee involvement implies. Employee involvement is a process of empowering employees to participate in managerial decision-making and improvement activities appropriate to their levels in the organization. Employee involvement means creating an environment in which people have an impact on decisions and actions that affect their jobs. Here we can run down the objectives of participation management, and we have to make best use of human capital, to meet the psychological needs of employees, to retain the best talent, to increase industrial productivity, to establish harmonious industrial relationship, and to maintain a proper flow of communication. Types of worker involvement. We have involvement by suggestion, we have task involvement, and we have high-level involvement. What do we mean by involvement by suggestion? Involvement by suggestion is usually generated by structures such as quality circles. And what do we mean by quality circles? A quality circle is a group of employees who meet regularly to consider ways of resolving problems and improving production in their organization. So these structures function in parallel with the formal organizational structure and require no change. Then, talking about task involvement. Task involvement entails those forms of involvement where workers in self-regulating teams acquire greater control over day-to-day decisions, which directly influence their tasks. These types of approaches automatically change the job or post design. And then the high-level involvement. High-level involvement includes the above two we mentioned earlier, the two approaches we mentioned earlier, but it goes further, it goes further in the sense that it involves workers in the management of the organization, and this results in far-reaching changes including power sharing, information sharing, skills development. Changed human resource system are usually anticipated in such work environments. Levels of worker participation. We have various levels of worker participation. We have low-level participation, middle-level participation, and top-level participation. You can say high-level participation. The low-level participation usually refers to the tasks of a worker, and its particular aim is to prevent job alteration. Low-level participation promotes job satisfaction and extends the scope of workers' tasks. Then, the middle-level participation occurs when a worker in a multi-plant organization participates in the decision-making process of the plant regarding aspects such as rules, regulations, disciplining procedures, and so on. Then we have the high-level participation. The high-level participation or top-level participation, as you choose to call it, takes place when workers participate in the decision-making of top management. Techniques of worker participation, or you can say techniques of employee participation. Participation by suggestion involving individual workers trying to influence employer decision-making at a localized level. It often concerns decisions which are of direct relevance to a worker's job. Then we have participation through quality circles. We've mentioned this earlier. A team of workers meeting on a regular basis in order to analyze and solve employee-related problems. Then we have participation by consultation, a technique whereby workers, through their representatives, periodically confer with their superiors or with more senior employer representatives. And then we have participation through co-determination. In this form of participation, workers, mostly through their representatives, and employers also represented by the management, are held jointly responsible by the owners of the enterprise. Now you're talking about the stakeholders, for the consequences of their decision. So this form of participation calls for commitment by the employers and the employees, their representatives, to the process, since decision can only be taken jointly. Then we have participation through teams. A team is regarded as a small number of people with complementary skills who are constituted for a common purpose. for performance goals and approach. So teams have become an important part of the modern management approach. Then we have participation through self-governance or self-government. This involves the management of the organization being taken over by nominated members of the workers. So you have worker cooperatives as examples of this. Then we have participation through trade unions. Of course, we are all aware of this. It's a process whereby the workers are represented by the trade union in decision-making forums, such as collective bargaining, interpretation of collective agreements and wages, and so on. And finally, we have workers' participation through workplace forums. The principal functions of the workplace forums, according to Pennington and Valzel, we have such functions to be to democratize the workplace, to promote the interest of all workers, to promote worker participation in decision-making, to increase productivity and profitability, and so on. Economic or financial participation. The most important dimension of any employment relation is economic or financial in nature. The economic or financial participation, therefore, makes a lot of considerable sense to the employees. The participation of employees on the fortunes generated by the organization may take various forms, such as profit sharing, employee share ownership scheme, group financial and bonus incentive scheme, and individual performance incentive scheme. Let's start with profit sharing. The share of profits fluctuates with the economic performance or features of a firm. Profit sharing may not therefore provide a stable level of income over time. The scheme may take the form of end-of-year bonus, well, it depends on the organization. And then we have employee share ownership scheme. This scheme is used as a tool for broadening participation of employees in company profits and decision making. It is also used to increase an employee's stake and commitment to the prosperity of the business. Then we have group financial and bonus incentive scheme. It is used largely by manufacturing companies, and the main purpose of bonus incentive schemes is to enhance economic performance and motivations by means of financial rewards. And finally, we have individual performance incentive scheme. It's mainly used in non-union or partially weakly unionized firms at all employee levels. In some other countries, such schemes are used mainly for the executives in the management level. Other categories of employees that can enjoy such schemes are the personnel in the sales force in an organization. Now it's time to take a pause and handle activity 2. Identify with examples the various forms of worker participation at various levels of organizational management. In summary, industrial democracy is a compelling aspect of managerial decision-making in the modern industrial undertaking. We have seen that the rationale for involvement of workers in decisions affecting the organization is because the workers are regarded as partners in progress by the management. We have discussed the concept of industrial democracy, the meaning of worker participation in organizational decision. We've also understood the goals of industrial democracy and the reasons for allowing workers participate in the decisions affecting the operations of the organizations. It is therefore necessary for the management to involve the workers in managerial decisions in order to ensure high level of morale and performance among the rank and file of the workers in the organization. Thank you.